You're watching WCAX, live coverage of Election Night 2018.
The polls are now closed and one winner already declared in Vermont. Good evening, everyone. I'm Celine MacArthur.
And I'm Darren Perrin. Channel 3 News has you covered for election 2018 results. The vote tallies are just starting to come in, but Bernie Sanders has already been declared the winner of the U.S. Senate race in Vermont based on exit polling. And
we will bring you his victory speech when it happens. We're also going to have all of the vote totals in Vermont, New York, and New Hampshire in our Election 2018 special coming up at 8 o'clock.
You can also follow the results on WCAX.com, and we want to hear from you. Comment on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag WCAXElection.
Well, we will see you back here at 8 o'clock. We now send you back to Entertainment Tonight.
See you soon.
Join Galen Etlin weeknights on the Channel 3 News.
How you doing? Campaign 2018, a first-term governor trying to hold on.
Raising taxes is always a last resort.
His opponent hoping for a history-making upset.
What we need to do is set the priorities and work with the legislature.
A quiet campaign season in Vermont, only occasional fireworks.
Excuse me.
These are my thoughts.
Well, they're pretty pathetic thoughts.
But heated battles across the country over the president's policies. Control of Congress at stake.
Well, I think the blue wave is dead, frankly.
It's unlikely that there will be the same sort of Trump effect for our local races.
A tight battle for governor of the Granite State.
I think he is out of touch.
Leadership isn't about just saying something.
And who will be the voice of New York's North Country in Washington?
Making sure that we have a strong approach and strong economic partnership. It's about working with Democrats and Republicans.
The campaign is over. The ballots are cast. We find out now what the voters had to say.
You're watching WCAX, live coverage of Election Night 2018.
Election 2018 has reached the finish line. Now we find out who won. Good evening, everybody. I'm Darren Perrin.
And I'm Celine MacArthur. Welcome to the Channel 3 News special coverage of Election Night. Now, over the next 2 hours, we'll bring you up-to-the-minute results and reaction from winners and losers. You're looking live now at the party headquarters for Vermont Democrats and Republicans as they, too, anxiously wait for the results.
We have team coverage with Kat Villianzoni and Avery Powell covering the Democrats and Neil Goswami and Taylor Young covering the Republicans.
We're also following results in New York and New Hampshire. Adam Sullivan is live in Manchester, New Hampshire. Kelly O'Brien is live in Glens Falls, New York. You can also follow the results on our website, WCAX.com. And we want to hear your thoughts on the election on social media. Use the hashtag WCAXElection in your comments.
And, of course, we've got the results at the bottom of your screen. The ticker will be running all night long. Only a small percentage of the votes in Vermont have been counted, but Bernie Sanders has already been declared the winner in the U.S. Senate race by the Associated Press. He was the first winner called by CBS News as well. This is based on exit polling. Sanders earns his third 6-year term in the Senate.
Well, voting results from towns all across our region are now starting to come in at a pretty steady pace, and we will be updating you throughout the night.
Now, the big statewide race that we are tracking tonight is the race for Vermont governor. Let's take a look at the early numbers right now. Incumbent Republican Phil Scott facing a challenge from Democrat Christine Hallquist, and right now Scott has 62%, Christine Hallquist 34%, but this is just 28 precincts out of 275 reporting so far.
And incumbent governors almost never lose in Vermont. It's only happened twice in the last 100 years. The last time was back in 1962. Phil Scott hopes to continue that run. The 60-year-old is a native Vermonter, born in Barrie and still living in central Vermont. He's married with 2 grown daughters. Scott is the former co-owner of Du Bois Construction, and he is the only governor in the country who's also a race car driver. His Democratic opponent, Christine Hallquist, is 62 years old. She was born in upstate New York and now lives in Hyde Park. Hallquist is married with 3 children. Now, before running for governor, she was CEO of Vermont Electric Co-op. Hallquist has gained worldwide attention as the first openly transgender major party nominee for the governor in the United States. Neil Goswami has more on how that factor and the personalities of the candidates may have influenced how people voted.
I don't have any regrets overall about the direction of the campaign, but I certainly, in the beginning, I've eaten my fair share of crow in this campaign.
Hallquist, a former electrical utility executive, was a first-time candidate, and she says early on she didn't always choose the right words, but she says her biggest challenge was coming up with enough money to match Scott and his allies.
The Republican Governors Association has pumped a ton of money into the campaign, into Phil Scott's campaign, and we aren't getting any national money, and we swore off corporate money. So it's been a struggle.
Scott raised $700,000, and the RGA kicked in another $826,000. Hallquist raised $560,000 and had virtually no outside help. Scott says motivating voters is a challenge when they think their candidate has it wrapped up.
There's always a race in Vermont, and so trying to get people energized enough to get out and support and do all the things we needed to do.
And having a record means more fodder for opponents.
I think your record can work for you and against you at the same time, and certainly gives the opposition an opportunity to highlight some of those challenges.
Hallquist made history by being the first major party transgender nominee. She says her campaign would not have been possible without her personal transition and finding her authentic self.
This is speaking personally, nothing to do with politics. No way I could have run. I was dealing with my own identity struggles, which held me back as a leader. I think I did a great job of leadership, but now I can do an even better job because I'm free of that burden.
And Neil joins us now. He's following the Scott campaign tonight from Republican headquarters in South Burlington. Neil, how is the governor feeling about his chances tonight?
Our image, our views, our point of view on anything.
Hey, Darren. Well, the governor is here in the building. Most, if not all, of his cabinet is here in the building. They're all feeling pretty upbeat tonight. From the early returns, things look fairly good. He's up a little bit, but it is early. But they're having some drinks. They're waiting for the final results to come in, and then they plan to cheer big if he does win re-election here tonight, which they think is likely to happen.
Neil Goswami will check in just a bit.
Let's go now to the Democratic Party headquarters in Burlington. Kat Villanzoni is standing by with the latest word from the Hallquist camp. And an uphill battle for Hallquist, clearly. She's had a lot less money to campaign and a lot more to prove in her since it is her first go-around.
Let me tell you right now, the cheers in this camp are really actually for a lot of the national races that they're hearing getting called. I mean, that's what you're hearing right now is the reaction to the national side. As for the Hallquist camp, I did actually talk to her a few minutes ago as she arrived, and she told me she's gotten a really good reception at the polls wherever she has gone today, which left her feeling pretty encouraged about her run. Have an uphill battle, and they will be intently watching the numbers here for that as the night goes on. Darren and Celine.
All right, Kat, thank you very much.
And we are joined now by former Vermont Governor Jim Douglas, who is here to offer his thoughts on election 2018. Governor, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, asking from a perspective of a 4-term governor who's run and won as an incumbent, how is this race different? Because, Governor Scott is facing a challenger who's making history as the first transgender major party gubernatorial candidate, gaining international attention. How do you handle that?
Well, and he also has the challenge of President Trump, who's not particularly popular in Vermont, but I think he's insulated himself well from that by breaking with the president and going his own way. And I think we've seen historically that Vermonters really jump around the ballot. They don't vote party, they vote for the individual, the person who they think is the best for the individual job. And I think based on his record, on his down-to-earthness, if that's a noun, Phil Scott is well liked by the people of Vermont, and I think he'll get another term.
Let's talk about, aside from Governor Scott, further down the ticket, not a lot of name recognition with the other Republicans on the ballot. How are you folks trying to increase the bench here?
Well, we've talked about that for decades, actually, and once in a while some of us have come off the bench, and my loyal Lieutenant Governor Brian Doobie almost made it, just by a whisker. He didn't quite win in 2010, but you're right, Darren, we have to find more up-and-comers, legislative leaders perhaps, maybe somebody who's held a lower state office, as I did before seeking the governorship. So we've got to work harder on that, and I think we'll make that a priority over the next couple of years.
Governor Jim Douglas, thank you so much. Appreciate your thoughts on this. Well, we have political commentary all night from both sides of the aisle.
And coming up in our next half hour, former Vermont Speaker of the House, Shap Smith Jr. talks about the races and what tonight's outcomes mean for the future of the Democratic Party, locally and nationally.
But first, let's take a look at those numbers again. We're going to be tracking all of the statewide races in Vermont. Let's quickly run through some of those numbers. Here again, in the race for Vermont governor, incumbent Phil Scott over Christine Hallquist, right now 62% to 34%. In the lieutenant governor's race, incumbent David Zuckerman has 52% over Don Turner at 47%. Kind of close, but again, just 29 of 275 precincts reporting. Incumbent TJ Donovan over Jansen Wilhoit in the AG's race, 64% to 32%. And in the Secretary of State's race, 29% of the precincts reporting incumbent Jim Kondo, 60% over H. Brooke Page, 37%. In the race for auditor, Vermont Treasurer, first of all, incumbent Beth Pierce has 62%, Richard Morton has 38%.
And if you're just tuning in, incumbent Bernie Sanders won his race. We will get to that in a moment. But first, the Vermont Auditor of Accounts. Again, incumbent Doug Hoffer, 55% over Richard Kenyon, 41%. That is, again, just 29 of the precincts voting. And again, just tuning in, he's been declared the victor, Senator Bernie Sanders. He won 61% over 32% by his Republican challenger, Lawrence Zupan.
Control of Congress is another big one that we're taking a look at. And right now, in the race for U.S. House, incumbent Peter Welch has 64% over his challenger, Anya Tinio. It's a big story that we are watching tonight. Those two Vermont seats do not appear to be changing hands. Bernie Sanders, again, winning. Welch in a very strong lead right now.
But, you know, there could be a lot of movement around the country, gains and losses by both sides. So Galen Etlin is here with a look at the bigger political picture and why it matters to you. Galen.
Celine, Darren, Republicans now hold this 235 majority over the 193 seats held by Democrats. Now, 7 seats are vacant, mostly by Republicans who have resigned. And tonight, Republicans have a narrow 51 to 49 majority in the Senate. And that includes 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats, Vermont's Bernie Sanders and Maine's Angus King. Republican control of Congress and the White House has allowed the GOP to push through its agenda, and Democrats are now hoping to seize back control of both chambers. The clash of red and blue captured in one of the nation's most heated Senate races.
Then we've got a job to do.
Texas Republican incumbent Ted Cruz facing Democrat Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who hopes to be a part of a so-called blue wave.
You can then say Texas is no longer red as purple.
That blue wave is going to hit a red wall right here in the volunteer state.
The race also tight in Tennessee, where VP Mike Pence stumped for Senate Republican candidate Marsha Blackburn up against former Democrat Governor Phil Bredesen. Democrats trying to retake the U.S. Senate majority face an uphill battle. In addition to Texas and Tennessee, both parties are playing tug of war over West Virginia, New Jersey, North Dakota, Missouri, Montana, Indiana, Ohio, Nevada, Arizona, and Florida. In the Sunshine State, it's neck and neck in the Senate race between incumbent Democrat Bill Nelson and current Republican Governor Rick Scott. Florida's gubernatorial race similarly divided for Democrat Andrew Gillum and Republican Ron DeSantis.
Build the wall. Make America great again.
In neighboring Georgia, the gubernatorial race under a national spotlight tonight, with Oprah Winfrey throwing support behind Democrat Stacey Abrams and Vice President Pence backing Republican Brian Kemp. Kemp is Georgia's current Secretary of State, his office facing legal challenges for alleged voter suppression. But no matter the candidate, no matter the race,
And you don't hear so much about that big blue wave anymore.
many of the conversations come back to President Trump.
Yep, it's walls, it's Muslim bans, it's the press is the enemy of the people. We know where that road takes us.
Senate candidates like Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz.
The liberals who are in Texas are really, really mad. They hate President Trump. That anger is dangerous.
For now, coloring red and blue inside their political lines. Now, closer to home, there are a number of big races in New York State for U.S. House seats, Secretary of State and Governor, and in New Hampshire, seats in Congress and the governor's office also up for grabs, with many swing votes likely to make the difference there. Our Adam Sullivan and Kelly O'Brien will have live coverage from both states in just a bit. Darren, Celine?
All right, thank you very much. We are just getting started. We've got lots more to cover here in Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York, so keep it right here on Channel 3.
Our special election coverage continues next with a look at the race for Lieutenant Governor in Vermont. Republican Don Turner trying to unseat the incumbent Progressive Democrat David Zuckerman. Don't go away.
Welcome back to Channel 3's special live coverage of Election Night 2018.
Here is a live look at the headquarters for the Democrats and Republicans as their candidates and their supporters watch the results roll in. The Democrats at the Hilton in Burlington and the Republicans at the Doubletree in South Burlington. Really just a couple of podiums at this point. Here's what we have so far. In the race for Vermont governor, Republican Phil Scott is leading Democrat Christine Hallquist 61% to 35% with 39 precincts out of 275 reporting. And in the race for Lieutenant Governor, Progressive Democrat David Zuckerman leads Republican challenger Don Turner 53% to 46%. Again, 39 precincts reporting. Let's get to know the incumbent a little bit better. David Zuckerman is seeking his second term, running as both a progressive and a Democrat. The 47-year-old lives in Heinsberg with his wife and daughter, where he works as an organic farmer. He served in the legislature for 20 years before winning the statewide seat. Zuckerman says he takes pride in promoting debate and discussion between lawmakers on every side of the aisle.
You're going to make it $15 tomorrow. It's going to kill our businesses. Frankly, that would have hurt my business. We would have had to close up if it was $15 next year. 50 cents a year or 60 cents a year for 5 years or 6 years is how we would get there.
And Channel 3's Avery Powell is covering the Zuckerman campaign for us, and it looks like Avery has got the Lieutenant Governor with him right now.
Handsome guy in a red tie.
Yes, I'm joined by Lieutenant Governor right now. So how has the campaign been so far? What was today like?
Today was great. We went around to a number of polling places and turnout was high everywhere, which is the best thing for everybody.
So we've been talking a lot about how this election, a lot of voters are coming out as a heavy turnout. What do you think about that?
Well, we were hoping for it. I certainly am hoping for it, not only in Vermont, but across the country. I think a high turnout just gives a better representation of what the public wants. I think the public is really frustrated, particularly at the national level, and they're saying we can't have any more of that. And we'll see how that trickles down in the state of Vermont.
There's been a lot of energy at the polls here.
Absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think folks here are feeling, you know, we came out of 2 years ago with one of the most depressing nights that folks on our side of the spectrum have ever had. And we're seeing high turnout. We're seeing incredible youth vote going on. We're seeing a lot of new voters come out. So I think people's energy is up for the possibility of what might happen tonight.
All right, we'll see what happens. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Absolutely.
Back to you, Selena Darren.
Avery, thank you so much. Now let's get to know the Republican challenger, Don Turner. Turner is 54 years old. He lives in Milton. He's married with 3 daughters. He is currently the town manager in Milton after a decade as fire chief. Turner has led the Republican Party in Montpelier as House Minority Leader for the last 6 years. Turner spoke to our Avery Powell just a few minutes ago.
You know, we asked people to come out to vote, and they did. I don't know what that means to the breakdown of the race, but you know, I feel really good about our campaign, and I'm proud of our team, and we're just going to hope that the numbers come in the way we want them to.
Channel 3's Taylor Young is covering the Turner campaign. She's live at Republican headquarters in South Burlington. Taylor, what's the mood there right now?
We'll have in
Well, Darren, it's high energy right now. Everyone is watching this for this race very closely. In particular, Don Turner. He represented the Republican Party for the last 6 years as a minority leader, and he gave up that position to run for Lieutenant Governor, Vermont's second highest office. And this is really his first statewide campaign, and if elected, his goal is to lower the cost of living and lower taxes. And this is a close race right now, so we'll be looking at those numbers closely. Darren?
Taylor Young, thank you.
Well, now to the races for Vermont's other top jobs. Let's start with the Attorney General. TJ Donovan is in the lead, 65-31 over his Republican challenger, Jansen Wilhoit. All right, now we have the Vermont Secretary of State, Jim Kondos, the incumbent, the Democrat. He's ahead 62% to Brooke Page's 35%. And for Vermont Treasurer, incumbent Beth Pierce, she's ahead 63% over Richard Morton at 37%. But again, as you can see, only 39 of the 275 precincts reporting. So this is still really early. Also, for the Auditor of Accounts, incumbent Doug Hoffer, 57%, Richard Kenyon, the challenger, 39%, again, 38 precincts reporting. So we will continue to follow that, of course, all night, and we're welcoming back the former Vermont Governor Jim Douglas. You've watched many elections. First, I want to talk about the lieutenant governor's race. So the governor didn't support his former lieutenant governor. Surprising?
Well, they run independently in Vermont. There are a lot of states where they run as a ticket, like the president and vice president, so they're always of the same party. But Vermont is among those states where they run separately. And we've had governor of one party and lieutenant governor of the other a number of times in our state's history.
And for people at home, what exactly does the lieutenant governor do?
Well, his principal responsibility is presiding over the state senate. He is the president of the Senate. He acts as governor when the governor is away, out of state, or incapacitated, if that should happen. It's a part-time job, which makes it difficult because not everybody can fit that into his or her life.
Now, if they both win again, and do you think that'll fracture, based on your experience, fracture the relationship? Will it make it harder to govern the state of Vermont?
I don't think it'll be any different. I had a Republican lieutenant governor for the entire 8 years of my administration, and frankly, I preferred that because we were in agreement on most of the issues. We were personal friends and got along very well. There's occasionally discussion about whether we should switch to that system of running as a ticket, but for now, it's not that way. And I'm sure, just like the last couple of years, that Governor Scott will work with whoever's lieutenant governor and whoever leads the majorities in the legislature.
Now, forgetting political sides for a moment, do you think that Christine Hallquist has a shot tonight of beating Phil Scott?
Well, sure, because this is a very blue state. In Vermont, the default vote is Democratic, and as you listed all the other races, they're largely going to the Democrats. So a Republican in Vermont really has to stand out, has to give the voters a reason to switch and pick a party that's not their natural instinct. But the governor, I think, has done that because of his tremendous leadership, his appeal across the political aisle. But a Democrat always has a chance in Vermont.
Well, thank you, Governor, but don't go away. We still want to talk to you. The polls just closed in New Hampshire at 8 o'clock, so those results are just starting to trickle in. So let's take a closer look at the candidates for the governor in the Granite State. The incumbent is Republican Chris Sununu, who's wrapping up his first term as governor. At 44, he's currently the youngest governor in the United States. He's married with 3 kids and lives in Newfields. Now, prior to jumping into the political arena, he was the CEO of the Waterville Valley Ski Resort. He's the son of former New Hampshire Governor John H. Sununu, who was also the White House Chief of Staff for George H.W. Bush. Democratic challenger Molly Kelly is 69 years old. She was born in Indiana, but moved to the Granite State to attend Keene State College as a single mom. Kelly's married with a daughter, 3 sons, and 7 grandchildren. She ran a small business as a retirement financial advisor and served 5 terms in the New Hampshire Senate. Adam Sullivan shows you what platform issues clearly divide the 2 candidates.
The governor's race may be on the top of the ticket in New Hampshire, but politics at the national level have trickled into the election.
I'm concerned that many of the policies that are taking place in Washington are making their way here to New Hampshire.
I just think Washington has to stop the political circus act that they're in, and they could probably take a page out of New Hampshire's book to really see how to get things done.
Chris Sununu is a relatively popular first-term incumbent, but the experts say he has shied away from taking controversial positions during his first 2 years in office. race. Molly Kelly spent 10 years as a state senator, but she's trailed in the polls and with name recognition throughout the race. Kelly is hoping to ride a blue wave into the corner office. But according to the experts, New Hampshire voters do not often vote straight party ticket.
I think New Hampshire voters are fairly able to discriminate office by office.
Donald Trump did not win New Hampshire in 2016, the year Sununu was elected governor. And while Trump is not on the ticket this election, he could still influence the race, especially when it comes to undeclared women.
Whether they're going to make a separation in their heads about what they don't like about the National Republican Party right now, and whether that will carry over to state and local Republicans.
This is one woman who says she's the change the Granite State needs.
I want to treat people with dignity and with respect, and I want to improve their lives.
But Sununu says lives are already improving across the region.
That's something to be very proud of, but you got to keep the momentum up and invest in the leadership that got you there.
Well, it's early in the night, and while these candidates are far apart on some key issues, this is expected to be a tight race. Let's check in with our Adam Sullivan at the DoubleTree in Manchester, New Hampshire, where Governor Sununu is watching the results come in. Adam, what's happening now?
I had a chance to speak with him briefly. He said he is feeling confident about tonight. Throughout the campaign, he has focused on his accomplishments and says more work needs to be done. But on the other hand, Molly Kelly says Sununu is out of touch with working families of New Hampshire, and she is hoping to ride that so-called blue wave. Ultimately, it will be the voters who decide, and undeclared voters, in which way they break at the polls will likely be the deciding factor, along with turnout. Reporting live from Manchester, New Hampshire, Celine, Darren, back to you.
Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy was not up for election this year, but he is celebrating with his party tonight. He is speaking to the crowd at the Hilton. Let's listen in.
We believe in the economy that works for all Americans. We believe in honesty and decency in public life. We believe you don't lead by demeaning your fellow Americans. And I think a lot of this started the day after the inauguration. Marcel and I rented out a house on Capitol Hill for anybody who came down for the Vermont Women's March. 600 showed up, Vermonters. We had a steady stream of people going down to Union Station with my credit card, getting more coffee and donuts. Till Sunday, somebody asked him, "How much coffee does Senator Leahy drink?" He said, "No, we got half of Vermont there." That was the start of the women's movement. That women's movement is going to be heard tonight in Vermont, throughout the country. I heard it from Vermont during the Kavanaugh hearings. I hear it from Vermont on gun control. I hear it from Vermont on health care. And I tell the other senators from the 49 states. So that's why I'm glad these young people are here. I'm glad that we have honest elections here. Jim Condos deserves credit. He's recognized throughout the country for that. But I can brag, and Marcel can brag, about Christine Hallquist and David Zuckerman and team.
And there you hear Senator Patrick Leahy, not up for re-election, but he's sort of seen as the grand dama of the Democratic Party here in Vermont, talking to the party faithful at the Hilton in Burlington tonight.
Well, Galen Etlin is tracking our viewers at the social media desk, following what you're saying online about election 2018. Hi, Galen.
Hi, Celine. Now, earlier we were talking about this, the two of us. Some people might be wondering why we cover this aspect, the social media part of local elections. For us and you at home, it's a good way of gauging what your community is talking about. And we can filter through some of the more mean-spirited comments for you, but also help take everyone outside of their social media bubbles. So I'm going to start with the race that everyone's talking about tonight on our page right now, WCAX TV on Facebook. We already have I don't know if you can see it here, 280 comments on our post, and I filtered out some of them just to kind of get a feel for it. So, although he's declared the winner already by AP, a lot of people are very mixed on this in our comments section. Some people saying it's too early to call with not all of the precincts reporting. We've got some people who are saying they're kind of dissatisfied with the way that he did his job earlier. So Jeff Harms here says, good job, y'all. You realize he's going to be campaigning for the whole term, right? Therefore, not doing what you elected him to do. Now, of course, you see people below that, Pauline, Rosie, they're showing some support for Bernie there. But again, Cindy echoing that concern, saying, I hope that proves the Associated Press wrong. Bernie Sanders needs to pay back Vermont taxpayers for his lack of representing the state while he was campaigning for president. Any person in office who decides to campaign for another position should take a leave of absence without pay. Now, if you scroll down a couple more comments, Leela saying, go Bernie. Now, already declared the winner, so clearly there are people who supported him. He does have the majority of the vote that we're seeing right now, but our Facebook comments showing a very different story. Some people voicing that this isn't really what they thought was going to happen or what they wanted to happen. So please go to WCAX TV on Facebook, comment. I might use some of your comments there on air as well, and tweet at me using the hashtag WCAX election. You might see it there as well. We're going to be right back after this.
All right, I think we have some breaking news just coming in. As we told you, Congressman Peter Welch apparently has just been declared the winner based on exit polls. And there he is, speaking to the Democrats right now. I think, are we able to take a listen in, everybody?
Patrick Leahy cast that vote. And every time a tough decision was required, Patrick made the right one. Patrick Leahy, thank you for being the conscience of the Senate and the conscience of Vermont. Thank you very much. And it's an exciting day, but before I get to that, I really want to thank all of the folks here, all of the campaign staff workers, all of the interns, all of the citizens who believe that every 2 years, as tough as it is to get involved in a political campaign, political campaigns and elections really matter. The worst thing that we can believe in politics is that it doesn't matter. That's the worst thing. And I'll tell you, if I ever had any question about does it matter, it happened a couple of months ago when I went down to the Texas border. I went to the Texas border because what we saw at that border was a government policy that was in your name, and it was in my name. Your name and my name, the authority of the presidency of the United States, saying we are going to take children from their parents in order to have a border wall, no matter what. And what this election is about, across this vast country of ours, with all of the different people and all of the different groups and all of the different aspirations that we have and all of the different challenges we face. The question is, are we in it together, or is it winner take all and you're on your own? That is the simple question that America is deciding across this land tonight. And what this election is about, very simply, you know, I met a former Marine at one of the campaign rallies that we were doing with Bernie Sanders. And he came up to me and he said, Peter, I'm with you all on the issues. I want health care for all. I want affordable college education. We've got to address climate change. But he said, Peter, what this election is about, this is a Marine who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, who knows something about service. He said, this is about our democracy. The guardrails of democracy are under attack. We're for a free press. We are for the rule of law. We are for respecting people no matter their race, their national origin, their sexual identity. It doesn't matter. We are in it together, and that's what this election is about. And I'll tell you something. We're starting to see the election returns coming in. We don't know enough, but I'm getting optimistic that we are going to have a Democratic House of Representatives at the end of this night. But let me say something. Yes, we will be a break on President Trump.
All right, well, that is Congressman Welch declaring victory, securing his seat once again, but it is actually not official just yet.
Yep, but his Republican opponent, Anya Tinio, again, she has not conceded the race. The 25-year-old from the Northeast Kingdom spoke to our Taylor Young just a short time ago. Taylor asked Tinio what parts of her campaign did not resonate with voters.
Probably conservatism in this area around Chittenden County was probably something that wouldn't resonate, but it did resonate with a lot of voters that I spoke with around the state, and I have no regrets about this campaign. I gave it my all.
And let's go live now to Taylor Young at the Republican headquarters in South Burlington. Taylor, what more did Tinio have to say?
Well, Tinio just took the podium up there and thanked all of her supporters, everyone here in the building, all the Republican Party for supporting her, but she's not handing in the towel just yet. And really, she is the youngest candidate that we're talking about tonight, and she thinks that's what gives her edge. She thinks she has a fresh perspective, unlike her competitor, Peter Welch, she says. But the real challenge for her was getting more name recognition with him. He's been in office for quite some time, and yeah, she really worked really hard to get her name out there, but she says it might not have been enough. And I asked her, what's next for you? And she says she does plan to remain in politics if she loses. Darren, Celine.
Taylor, thank you very much. Let's head back to Channel 3's Avery Powell now. Welch declaring victory to the party faithful there, Avery. Not totally called yet. His challenger in this race not giving up as well. What's the mood, though?
Well, Darren, the mood here, obviously you can hear people are applauding. The energy is really electric. Congressman Welch has just left the stage right now, but he talked a lot about President Trump's policies and how he wants to work against those, and that really got this room energized, though. He's been in Congress for a long time, so 25-year-old Anya Tinio really faced an uphill battle in this race, but you can definitely tell people here are energized and ready to see him win. We will see how that goes later on tonight. Back to you, Celine and Darren.
Channel 3's Avery Powell.
Well, there's much more to come here on our special election 2018 coverage.
Next, we take a look at the race for U.S. Senate. Again, Bernie Sanders, the winner here, but we're going to look back at this when we come back.
WCAX Channel 3 News election coverage brought to you by Vermont Federal Credit Union. See where better banking takes you.